Torah portion of Bo, and we are in the 6th reading, and we are ready to leave Egypt. Anybody ready to come with us? Ready to come? All right, here we go. Actually, sorry, before going out of Egypt, the 10th plague. 10th and final plague. And it was in the middle of the night, half of the night. You can let in Liba. Thanks. Hashem hika kol b'chor be'eretz Mitzrayim, and Hashem struck down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, b'chor parai, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, Hayoshev al Kisei, that sits on his throne, b'chor Shvi, Shvi, until the firstborn prisoner. Hashem Sabor, that is in the dungeon, V'chol B'chor Beheman, all the firstborn animals. Let's see Rashi on this. In verse 29, first Rashi. Hashem, Kol Malkum Shenem Hashem, wherever it says Hashem, who obeys Dinai, it means he and his court. That's what it means. Sam, have a good Shabbos.
Thank you for everything.
Well, I'll speak to you let's speak before Shabbos, okay?
For sure.
Okay, be well.
For Shabbos, even though I go to Rabbi who would at Chabad McGill.
Right.
I live next door.
Right, yeah, of course.
I'm sure you know him, eh?
Yeah, of course I know him. Yeah, I will speak before Shabbos. So just, I want to go through some things with you. All right.
And one little favor, cash that check today.
Okay.
If you could, please.
Okay.
Rabbi, why does it say Bocher Shvi'i? Shvi'i?
No, it's spelled without an ayin. It sounds like 7, but it's not. It means prisoner. It's without an ayin. That Sheva is with an ayin.
Hashvi, okay.
Yeah, it sounds, yeah.
Thank you.
So where it says Hashem, it means him and his court, because it says V'Hashem, and God. So there's an and to God, there is something. What is added to God? Him and his court. Shavav, Lashon Teisusu. The Vav is an expression of addition. Kamei Pliny o Pliny, as a certain person and a certain person, right? He got called Bechor, and he smote every firstborn. Shel Umma Acheres, even the firstborn of other nations, who been Mitzrayim, and who was in Egypt. Now, if you were on vacation in Egypt at that time, and you were a firstborn, you know, that's what's called being at the wrong place at the wrong time. That's where that phrase probably came from. From the firstborn of Parai, Para was also firstborn, but he was left alive from among the firstborn. Regarding Para, it says, because of this, I have kept you standing in order that I show you my strength. Where? By the Sea of Reeds, where the sea would split, and then there everybody got drowned. Ad Bechor Hashivi. Again, it sounds like 7, but it's not. The firstborn of the captive, they also got smitten. Why did they get smitten? Well, actually, we had this Rashi earlier. They were rejoicing in the downfall of the Israelites. That's why they got smitten. In order also that it should not be said, that it was their deity that brought the punishment, right? So, there'd be remember, they were pagans, right? They believed in idolatry, which just meant different false gods, right? They believed in that. So here, So they were smitten that they shouldn't be. Oh, their God is what brought the downfall of Egypt. Bachar Hashivchan, the firstborn slave, firstborn of the slave we mentioned earlier, Bachal Haya was included in the category of those who were smitten in the plague. Sharei Mana min Chashuv Shibikula, because the Torah verse lists everyone from the most notable. In other words, the firstborn of Pharaoh, Adapachas until the least notable. Bachar Shivcha, and the firstborn of the slave woman, Chashuv mi Bachar Hashvi, was more notable than the firstborn of the captive. Just giving you the Yaakov Pare, verse 30. And Paro rose Lailahu that night, B'chol and all of his servants. B'chol Mitzrayim and all of the Egyptians. B'tihi tzaka gedolah, and there was a great outcry. B'Mitzrayim in Egypt, he aimed by his ain shameis, because there was no house without someone dead. Rashi Yaakov Pare, and Para arose mitase from his bed. Laila at night, which is not the way the manner of kings. Shows that they only get up in the third hour of the day, and they can sleep in. Everybody else has to get up before dawn in order to work from sunrise onwards, right? But and kings get up later. Who tchila. He was the first one to rise, and afterwards his servants. Who excuse me. Thank you. That it teaches us that he arose, and afterwards his servants. That it teaches us that he himself went around the houses of his servants and got them up. Right, not the way of a king.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So continuing, Rashi, he aimed by such an shames, because there was no house that there wasn't a dead person in. Yesham Bachor base. If there was a firstborn there, he died. Ein Sham Bachor. If there was no firstborn there, Golish Bachor. The most important one, the significant one in the household was called the firstborn. Shenema, as it says, Afani Bachor etnehu. I too will make him into a firstborn. Right. Now, it's not just a literal sense, but it was someone who was, considered important in the family. Davar acher, that's one explanation. Another explanation. All of the Egyptians, even those in which there appeared to be no firstborn, were affected by the plague. Why? Because the Egyptian women would have illicit relations while married to their husbands. And they would bear children from single men. So they would have many firstborns. It could be 5 firstborns to one woman. Because the firstborn wasn't the woman's firstborn, it's the man's firstborn. Right? So it could be she could be carrying someone else's child who is a firstborn to that man. Okay, 31. And Pharaoh, he called out to Moshe and Aaron, Lila at night, and he said to them, Pharaoh, Kumu, get up. So, go. Ami, from amongst my people. Gam atem, gam bnei Yisrael. You, also the children of Israel, l'chol, go. And go serve God as you have spoken. Rashi Bikra Moshe and Aaron and Laila. He called for Moshe and Aaron at night. And this tells us that he went around the city crying out, Heicha Moshe, Shari Heicha Aaron Shari. Where's Moshe staying? Where's Aaron staying? Gamatem, you, even you, Hagvarim, this refers to the adult males. Gamane Israel, also the children of Israel. Hataf, that refers to children. Yivdu. Go and serve as you have spoken. Everything as you have said. Only not like I said. Batal I will not send the Israelites. That is when I said I will not send the Israelites, that's batal. It's canceled. Batal which ones are going is canceled. Only that your flock and cattle shall stay put. That's also canceled, right?
Rabbi,
This is
same word in Persian.
huh?
Bottle, cancel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Thank you.
This is the beginning of cancel culture, and Pharaoh canceled himself. He didn't have anybody else cancel him. He canceled himself. Okay, 32. By the way, seemingly there should be a question over here. Remember, he said it by plague number 9. What's it? I think it's by plague number by the end of 8 or 9. It was that you're not going to see me anymore. Right? Go and you're not going to see me anymore. So what's this? How to, and so he says that so it will be. And Moshe even responded, so it will be. And this seems like they had an encounter with him. Okay, so gam tzeinchem v'gam bekarchem. Also, your sheep and your cattle. Khu, take. You shall take. Kasher dibartem, as you have spoken. V'leichu, and go. V'rachtem gam ha'isi. And but before you go, bless me too.
By the way.
Gam tzeinchem gam bekarchem. Khu, and even your flock and your cattle take. Ma'u kasher dibartem. What does that mean? As you have spoken. And Lutza, what Moshe said earlier, Gam ata titem b'yadenu zvachim v'elis. Said that Moshe said that you will give animals for the sacrifices and the burnt offerings. So here Moshe agreed to his demand. Others take the animals as you have spoken, right? Because Moshe said that I'm going to take from you too, right? And please and bless me too. He's followed said that I should not die. Shani B'chor, because he is a firstborn. Give me a brief.
Amen.
How are you? Yeah. Hey, Dennis. Katie, I'm putting it in your. On my desk, or check the left-hand drawer, and then the right-hand drawer on the side. Are you? I mean, I might have one.
Okay. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Hi, Rabbi.
Okay. $33. V'techzak Mitzrayim es ha'am, and they strengthened the Egyptians. The word chazak. Chazak, by the way, is Chabad Sichrin Kadesh acronym. V'techzak Mitzrayim es ha'am, and they strengthened the nation, the Egyptians, the nations. It translates here as urged them. And that, but it literally means, again, strengthen, and urging them, lemahir, to hurry, the shalchem, to send them off, minars from the land, he amru kolana mesim, because they said we're all dying. Kolana mesim Rashi, amru, they said, loy, this plague is unlike the decree of Moshe. Shrei amar v'meis kol b'chor. He said every firstborn will die. Kan pshutim mesim. Here, the plague is even common. Non-firstborn sons are also dying. Chamisha asara v'bayisecha, 5 or 10 people in a household. Remember, because they were from illicit relations. So even though they seemed to be not firstborns, but they were firstborns
Of their fathers.
of the fathers, exactly. The Esau is Betseke, and they took up the people, the nation. Is Betseke, their dough, Terem Yechmatz, before it leavened. Misharoisam Tzeres Besimloisam al Shichmam. Misharoisam, from leftover Tzerurais. But it means leftover food. The word doesn't mean really food. Why is it leftover?
Because they didn't have time to cook.
Leftover food wrapped in their clothes on their shoulders. Let's see Rashi, Lamed Daled, 34. Before it becomes leaven. So the Egyptians didn't allow them to tarry long enough that it should be leavened, right? That it should ferment. Even though, hey, wow.
Who gets the
Yeah.
parents?
Yes, this is my grandson, Yiddy. Say hi to everybody. Mishar Reisam, they're leftover. The Mishar de Matzah Yomorah, the leftovers of matzah and the bitter herbs. Remember, they slaughtered. This is midnight, right? This is midnight. Before that, they slaughtered already the Paschal lamb offering, and they ate it with matzah and bitter herbs. That was already what we learned previously. So anything that was left over, right, of this meal, that's what it's referring to. But it says wrapped them on their shoulders. I'm not exactly clear. Let's see. Let's continue. Al shichmam, on their shoulders. Even though he took many animals with them, that he could have carried it on the animals. Was a mitzvah. They treated this in a loving way because it was a mitzvah. Right? This was a mitzvah, so they treated it lovingly. They carried it themselves. 35. Of an Israel also, Kidvar Moshe, and the children of Israel did according to the words of Moshe, what he said, V'yishalu b'Mitzrayim, and they requested from the Egyptians clay kesef, a vessel of silver, of zahav, or clay zahav, and a vessel of gold, v'simlois, and clothing. Rashi Kidvar Moshe, Shamar lehem b'Mitzrayim, as he told them, earlier in Egypt, Yishalu ish me'ez ehu, simlais and clothing, af heim hayu chashuvim lehem, min hakesef v'in hazav, ha'mu'ocher b'pasuk chashuv. So this also was a valuable, even clothing, because it, right, that of silver and gold, for whatever is mentioned later in the verse, is more important. So it was like, they were getting the latest fashion of clothing, the most expensive stuff. Hashem nasan is chein ha'am, and Hashem placed the graciousness of the nation, of the Jewish people, in Mitzrayim, in the eyes of the Egyptians. V'yishalom v'yinatzu es Mitzrayim, and they shot the ashilum. And they requested the Yashilum. So here it says, oh, they borrowed, right? And Atzuz Mitzrayim, and they drained out Egypt of its wealth. Rashi, the Yashilum, and they lent them, even that which they were not asking from the Egyptians, they would give it to them. And they would say to them, you're asking for one thing, take two and get out of here. I don't know why it means lent. What's the idea of lending when, right?
When God told them,
Well,
"Go to your good best friends."
Yeah, but why Lent? And Lent means you gotta give it back. Okay, Binatsu, and they emptied out. They should be understood. Like he knew, and they emptied out. Verse 37, Vayisu b'nei Yisrael mi Ramses, and the Israelites, they traveled from Ramses, Sukkot, to Sukkot. 600,000 men on foot, besides the children. Rashi Ramses is also from Ramses, this is the distance of 120 mil. Right, 120 mil. I would say it's approximately under 100 kilometers. They came there very quickly. It says, I carried you on the wings of eagles. Oh, Gvarim, and the man, 20 years and older. And also the mixed multitude came up with them. And they came up with a flock and a cattle with a great deal of livestock. This is a mixture of people from the nations who became converts, right? After seeing what was happening over here, so you had the mixed multitude. They came up from other nations who wanted to be part of the Jewish people. Okay, verse 39, and they baked the dough, asher haitziyim in Mitzrayim, that they took out of Egypt, ugas matzahs, cakes of matzah. Kilei chametz, Pharaoh did not leaven, did not ferment. Because we're driven out of Egypt, and they were not able to delay, to tarry, and nor did they were prepared with any provisions for themselves. They went out without a cooked meal. Learn Rashi. Come, look inside Vizadi.
Oh.
Okay. Ugais matzah is cakes of matzah. Matzah.
Could it be?
Matzah. Rasha matzah, cake of matzah. But it's called matzah. Dough that is not leavened is called matzah. You're gonna go? Okay. Bye-bye. And also they did not have provisions for themselves, the derech for the journey. This tells us the praise of the Jewish people. They didn't say, how can we go out into the desert without provisions? But they believed in God and they went. This is what's stated in the prophets. So it says in Jeremiah that I remembered for your favor, the kindness of your youth, and the love that you when you were a bride, for following me, that God says you followed me in the desert, in a land not sown. What's the reward of the faithfulness that they had? It clearly states afterwards what their reward is. Kodesh Yisrael Hashem. What's the faithfulness rewarded with? And that the Israelites are holy unto God. Moshe ben Israel. Moshe ben Israel. And the dwelling of the Bnei Israel, of the Israelites, Asher Yoshua, that they settled in the land of Egypt, Shloishim Shana, 30 years, V'arba Me'ah Shana, and 400 years, 430 years they were there. It's interesting, Rashi is going to go through a whole calculation over here. How do we come to that? And let's take a look. Time that they dwelt in the land of Yeshivas after all the dwellings Gerim that they lived as foreigners in a land that's not theirs. Okay. 430 years, right? Bein Hakol, the sum total of all the years that they dwelled in the land of Egypt, right? Culminating now because they left. When is that? From the time that Yitzchak was born until now. Haya Arba Meos Shana was 400 years. How do we know that? So now he's going to go 400 years from when Yitzchak is born. From the time that Avram had offspring, the decree for your offspring will be a foreigner for 400 years was being fulfilled, right? It was by the covenant before Yitzchak was born. God made a covenant with Abraham. The covenant between the pieces, as it's called, right? Pieces of meat that you walk through, right? He made a covenant. And in that covenant, he says that it will be 400 years. Here it says 430, right? We have a contradiction in verses. So he explains 400 years that you're going to be a foreigner is going to be fulfilled from now, from this point on. Now we're missing 30. And there were 30 additional years because it was an additional decree by the covenant between the parts until Yitzchak was born. So there was an extra 30 years. There was a so although it seems a contradiction, so 400 years being from Yitzchak's birth, but then there is 30 years that is including Abraham's sojourning, his journeys. Why the distinction? I'm not exactly clear, and I don't know if that's something he takes into account over here, if that's it. All right. Now, it's impossible to say that the 430 years was in the land of Egypt alone, right? So that's what he's going to show now, seemingly, you know, it's interesting when the decree is given, it doesn't say which land. So it's not just in Egypt. That's what Rashi is going to show now. That's impossible to say 430 years is the entire time they were in Egypt because it doesn't add up to that. Why? So he explains. Sharei cause hayim haboim im Yaakov haya. Kahos and the grandfather of Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, was among those who came to Egypt with Jacob. So go now you have to calculate his years. So Amram was his son, who is the father of Moshe and Aaron. Moshe, and the 80 years of Moshe, right, that elapsed from before the Exodus, because he was 80 years old when he redeemed the Jews. But Tim said, "Kol kach," you're not going to find that it adds up to that much. Therefore, you're forced to say Kahas had many years. Let me try him until he went down into Egypt. And many of Amram's years are overlap with Kahas's years, right? Father and son, they overlap years. And the 80 years of Moshe is also kind of swallowed up and included in Amram's years, right? They overlap. So you're not going to find 400 years that they came, the Israelites, into Egypt. Therefore, it's necessary to say that in the other periods of settlement of the Israelites before they went into Egypt, and the Quran Gators, they were also called foreigners, which is part of fulfilling that your offspring will be a foreigner. Even when they spent time in Chevron, that's considered like a foreign sojourn. Sham Avram Yitzchak, that Avram and Yitzchak, they sojourn there in the Chevron. But Emer, like I was saying with regard to the patriarchs' residence in the land of Canaan, Sher Gar Sham Avram Yitzchak, Emer. So we have to see that the decree that you will be a sojourner, a foreigner in the land, right? Came into effect immediately when Abraham had offspring. Because you can't 400 years from when Yitzchak is born. You'll find that when they came, the Jews into Egypt, until they went out, 210 years. These are one of the things that the sages changed for King Talmai. Wow. Why does he have to say that? King Ptolemy of Egypt, he ordered 70 sages to translate the Torah into Greek, each one independently, and they all made identical modifications in the text. One of the changes is that they said the inhabitants of children of Israel. Okay. Oops. Or anyway, he indicates Shleish Mishana. So it kind of makes sense in a way, because even though it was promised the land of Canaan to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but they didn't have ownership of the land then. As a matter of fact, that's what it means, in the beginning of last week's Torah portion, right? That God appeared to the patriarchs of Kel Shaddai. They made a promise, but only now he's come to fulfill his promise. So they were also strangers in the land, right? Now, the 430 is including Avram's sojourning in the land. Why there's a distinction between one place 400 and here we have twice now 430? Question, I don't know. So it was at the end of 430 years. It was in the very day, in the essence of the day. Nikor the Yotzu al Tzivos Hashem. They went out, the legions, the hosts of God, and to time from the land of Egypt. That's it, folks. We're out. And 430 years. On that very day, it tells us once the end of the exile arrived. Hashem didn't deter them for even a blink of an eye. Yeah. So that as you can see, since the end, that was preordained came, like God didn't delay like a blink of an eye. The 15th of Nisan, the angels actually came to Avram to inform him of Isaac that he would be born on that date the following year, right? Pesach time. On the 15th of Nisan, Yitzchak is born. On the 15th of Nisan, 30 years earlier, the decree of the covenant between the parts was decreed. Wow. Look at that, on the very day. So that's what he's explaining, on the very day. On the very day, you have the decree. The very day, you have the being told that he's going to have a child on the 15th, and on the 15th of Nisan, he actually has Yitzchak born. So it's like perfect 400 and 430 years. I really don't get it. Something's not adding up. Because Lech Lecha, he was 75 years old, the verse says. 30 years from when Yitzchak is born, he's born when he's 100. That would make 70 years. Something's not adding up. Okay, 42. Leil Shmurim Hu Hashem. It is a night of protection. No, he explains, it says of expectation. Protection. Hu Hashem, for for God to take them out, to return from the land of Egypt. Hu halayla hazeh. This is the night, La Hashem Shmorim, a protection, L'chol b'nei Israel, l'doros, for all of the um, the Israelites throughout generations. Rashi 41. Sorry, 42 rather. This is a night of keeping. Shaya Kodesh Baruch Hu, Shem Mitzapaloi. That Hashem was keeping in mind and looking forward for this day, L'kaim Abtachas Uleisim in return, to fulfill his promise to take the Jews out of Egypt. Hu alayla zeh Hashem. This is the night that's unto God. Hu alayla shamar Avram. This is what he said to Abraham. Balayla ze'ani kol ezbonecha. On this night, I'm going to redeem your children. Shmorim l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'doreisam. It's a protection for all the children of Israel for all generations. Shomar bo, guarding from the time onward. Mina mazikim, from harmful spirits. As it says, "V'lo yiten hamashchis." He will not permit the destroyer to destructive things. Yom Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron zoyzchu kas haPesach kol b'nei necha lo yeichel bo. And Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, "This is the law of the Passover sacrifice. No stranger to God may eat from it." Rashi zoyzchu kas haPesach v'yeh b'Nisan nemra lehem parshazu. Now we're going back in time, because this was said on the 10th of Nisan, right? Or Yudalit, sorry, Yudalit b'Nisan. Yudal, not the 10th. Why I say the 10th? Yeah. On the 14th of Nisan, this was said to them, this parsha, which means the day previous, because they went out on the 15th. Kol b'nei what does it mean, any stranger? Shenitnakru ma'asav la'ovi shebashamayim. He made his acts alien to our Father in heaven. Israel. This implies anybody who is a non-Jew or an apostate Jew. I'd love to continue, but I do.